You ever have a guitar that you absolutely love, except there's this one weird thing wrong with it? That is this guitar for me. It is the Joe Duplantier signature guitar, the Pro Mod Sans Dimas model, in mahogany. It's good, and I shouldn't like it on paper. You know, it's not super ergonomic. It's stupid heavy. It's got 22 frets. Got a big chunky kind of bolt-on feel to it, but there is a problem here, and I want to see if you. Well, let me just show you what I mean. That buzzing is normal. That's the amp sim I have. But when I do this, here it gets quieter. All that high frequency stuff goes away. And even worse, when I have the guitar turned off and I just move the volume pot a little bit. I almost blew out my speakers by doing that. So let me turn it down, and then let me show you what I mean. So here I'm going to strum the strings. And then if I just touch it at just the right angle, that's right. You can hear the guitar with just a little bit of force on the volume pot. Now, I have no idea if this is intentional or not. What am I saying? Of course, it's not intentional. It's bypassing the volume knob with just a little bit of force. The important bit is that the grounding's bad. There's something to check out underneath the hood. It's the way the guitar came. I haven't touched or modded or changed anything else about this guitar. I'm sure I'm going to find plastic underneath the potentiometer when I take it apart, but I just want to check it out. Hello, my guitarcanists. Welcome to my project. We're just going to take the guitar, take it apart, probably try to address some of the grounding issues, and just figure out why this is happening. Super weird. I think I waited something like 11 months for this guitar, and it is my main guitar in D standard for the Mastodon and Gojira that I love in my life. And in the last year, I think I've taken a lot of different modding and guitar maintenance techniques to a next level for my own personal growth. And we're just going to just open this up and just see. I don't know. I have no clue what's going to be in here. I hope it's really easy, but I also hope it's interesting and we both learn something. So come with me. Let's figure it out. All right, first things first, got to get those strings off and got to get that pickguard off. It's really been a minute since I've had to disassemble a guitar where all of the control cavity is actually below the pickguard. So pickups, standard DiMarzio ones as well as Joe's signature ones. No surprise there. I also got really distracted by this volume capacitor between the two leads. I'll have a whole video on that. Just for your info, there's a whole bunch of different volume cap potentiometer type mods. This one is what we call a treble bleed knob, or essentially when you turn down the volume a little bit, it preserves some of the high end. Very, very good and interesting mod. There's a whole bunch. I think there's about 8 between like the Kinman, the parallel Duncan, the old Fender style, the grease bucket. There's a whole bunch. And I hope to talk about that more in the future. Looking in the inside, looks like we do have a piece of conductive tape between the potentiometers, so they should be grounded despite a wire not directly being between the two. And the 0 ohms on the ohm meter shows that. So let's take a look at the bridge. Let's see if the bridge is grounded to this. Check. Yeah, it took a little while, but it does seem like it is. So maybe it's more of a loose connection. But the beeps do indicate a low impedance path, which is good. At this point, I'm just going to try to change and modify things that I think look a little bit weird, bending the lead so I have a little bit more space, and cleaning up any cold solder joints. For a tip, I recommend putting a little bit of actually solder on the tip of your iron, and that'll get some flux to start to flow in the soldering that you've already had there, and it'll help essentially melt a little bit more quicker. Some of this lead-free solder is a little bit more difficult, you could say, to deal with and have it flow as easily. Flux helps a ton. And of course, when you're soldering, you're looking for very shiny joints, and hopefully nothing that looks dull. So we'll do an impedance test here and see if my cleaning up the joints help at all, providing stronger connection. There's your beep to know that we're good as a test. And look how quickly that beeped this time. Yep, so solder joints really did help clean up that to the bridge a little bit. At this point, I'm looking at some of the switching, and oh, looks like the wire came off. Sometimes you can easily fix that with some pliers, but let's see how we're doing now. Man, listen to that weird sound. It almost sounds like I'm an aircraft traffic controller or something. Yeah, I'm as confused as you, buddy. So on further inspection, you can tell that almost torquing or really tightening the volume pot caused a little bit of breakage. I'm wondering if that was an issue or it was causing the issue, but at this point, I just decided, all right, I have the shielding copper, let's just shield the entire pickguard and cavity of the guitar. So a little bit of copper foil there, piecing them all together, poking out for the little screw holes, and then we do the cavity of the guitar. No, this is like sped up about 600%. This took days. It is not easy to do this. Next time, I'm going to invest in some shielding paint, but also have all this copper foil. So I don't really want it to go to waste. Maybe after I'm done using all of that. As you can also tell, we want a little bit of overhang from the body of the guitar. We know that the pickguard is going to come down on top of this, so we don't want any of the foil to poke underneath the pickguard and be exposed to, the user. But we want a little bit of overhang to make sure there's a solid contact when we screw down the pickguard. It makes contact with this foil and therefore makes, the chamber that we expect, the Faraday cage that we're trying to emulate when we ground all this stuff. And after that, we want to make sure there's solid connections between all these pieces of copper foil. So I just quickly make some solder joints between them. And now it's time to wire it all together. I also like to adjust the angle of the switch potentiometer too. It helps. What I'm doing here also is just making sure that there's a proper ground connection between the actual foil cage that I've made and the star point ground connection. In other words, the back of the volume potentiometer. So that's what I'm doing here. I decided to put it relatively as close to the jack as possible, since that's where ground is referenced to at the end of the day anyways. And all we have to do now is reassemble it. I'm probably going to do not the greatest job, just a good enough job. And we're going to do some tests. All right, I just got the guitar. It's reassembled except for the strings. I have two things that I need to do to make sure it's kind of a similar test to what we had before. And that is, I don't have the two-pneumatic, stopper thing on the back. Usually that would be connected with tension via the strings and pulling up, and that electrical connection would come from here to the actual saddles. I have a little wire that I can plug in right here just to double check that. But with that being said, let's listen to it. I'm going to turn it up. Here, listen to the buzz. And now I just get to touch it, and let's see if the noise goes down. That's pretty conclusive evidence to me. Here, let's do it with the wire attached to the bridge, even though that shouldn't change anything. Wow. Okay, we got to be a little fair here. I actually cleaned up some solder joints, right? I didn't just put copper in the guitar and electrically connect that copper
to the, the output jack, we did some other stuff. So it could be any combination of things. But, I mean, I think I cleaned up the solder joints, and I have to I'm going to review the footage, but I think I cleaned up the solder joints, then assembled the guitar and tried the test again. It didn't work. But we'll find out when I review the footage. The holidays really were very busy, and I didn't get to finish this project until, maybe a week later or so. Anyways, I'm excited. I'm just going to double check that everything looks good on the outside, maybe clean up any copper foil on the pickguard that may or may not look correct. And then I'm going to restring the guitar and reset it back up, and we should be good to go.
Oh yeah, I should probably check that I wired the pickups correctly. Can tell when I have it over the bridge, it's making a noise and the neck is not. Switch it, now it's over the neck. And in the middle, we'll show both of them. And at this point, it's time to clean it up, reassemble it, change that knob, really change and clean it up, and I'll leave you with some ASMR here at the end. Oh, look at that gunk. Sorry for jumping in again. Clean your fretboards, people. And that's it. So thanks for coming along on the journey with me. This is one of the few times I feel like actually fixing grounding in the guitar made the noise go away. I'm blown away by that. It usually never happens. And usually it's like some loose solder joint or wires, essentially something fundamentally wrong instead of something a little bit more incremental. If I were to guess, it's probably the break in that conductive tape that we saw. And we just decided to really hit it over the head with a sledgehammer to get rid of it instead of just, fixing up the tape. We did everything else in the guitar too. Anyways, I'll leave you with this awesome Mastodon riff, and I'll catch you next time.